Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there.
Okay, guys. Well, I shared information and a little bit of a post on EEARTS speaking about Evolutionary as they gave it a second strike. They've done that before. Overall, I think we've probably gotten 8 to 10 strikes on Evolutionary throughout its history. And when it went to 2 strikes previously, I flipped almost every video over to private, so they wouldn't have any sort of ammunition. That takes a long time, and we'd have to cancel a ton of appointments with people and focus on that. And so we won't be doing that this time, but please put out your intentions that Evolutionary be left as it has been. And it's interesting too, because the video that they talked about, they said it how did they word it? Like dangerous info or something like that.
Yeah, put people in danger.
Yeah, all it was basically saying is don't buy into the division. Don't lash out and do anything negative. Stay out of the battle. Stay out of the fray. And again, the thing we have to really realize here, and it's really the whole gist of trying to get this understanding across. And might as well, if you haven't, please do subscribe to both channels. So everything's going to be going up on EEARTS for the most part. If we do something that's too touchy, it'll just be on Patreon, Ko-Fi, and we'll put it either Brighteon, Rumble, or Bitchute. Every single venue seems to have some sort of interference. But again, the main thing I want to get across with this video is we are behind enemy lines here on the planet, so to speak. This battle that's going on, it's much bigger than a left versus right, a Democratic versus Republican, a communist versus capitalist. It goes so far beyond that. It goes so far beyond a quote-unquote deep state or even quote-unquote globalist point of view. It's much bigger than that.
Mm-hmm. And what we see here is that playing out in the 3D, the duality playing out. So we can see that duality in the 3D. But yes, it's far more expanded than that. I don't think many of us could actually really comprehend, but we have to, because our comprehension is so important to our sovereignty. We need to get a grasp on this and understand it.
Absolutely. And so when we say we're behind enemy lines, we literally are. And these lines of battle and demarcation change depending on the cycles. Let me bring up this chart.
Yes, I love it when Mike gets going, because he starts to just channel information and everything comes through. It's really fun to watch him put videos together, because he just flows. And it's really important, because neither he nor I go really well if there's some kind of a script that we have to follow. That just doesn't work for us. So like every video you guys see, it's just us. And most of the time, unless there's something with the volume, it's the first take.
Yeah, we don't put things together per se and then edit. Like a good friend of mine, he sends out material to be finished, and then it comes back sometimes weeks later. And, it'd be like, oh, wow, we covered that 2 weeks ago. But that's because of the production value. And we understand production value, but we're not here for that. And this is not even really where we are from ultimately, as even about maybe 30% of you guys have had lives elsewhere besides Earth. And so we're just trying to share some things that are completely hidden behind the front lines on a planet that's, basically at a remote outpost, so to speak, in the bigger battle that's afoot. So depending on where we are in the cycle, it's really depending on how the battle lines are and where they are occurring. Currently, what we would call the enemy, per se, can extend all the way up to the lower echelon of the fifth density. And so this is This is something that, maybe is not shared openly with in other venues and through other people, but this is something we've gotten clearer understanding on. So at this moment, like when we're in these Kali Yugas and shifting to Dwapara, or basically a Bronze Age, the battle wages all the way to the lower echelons of fifth density. And so this battle is really raging on fourth density, and it absolutely affects us in third density. And again, third density and fourth density are like two sides of the same coin. When we're sleeping, we're in fourth density. When we're awake, we're in third density. When we die, we're in fourth density typically, unless we ascend up to fifth density, which we can do as an individual, depending on the life we've led and how we've cultivated our life force and our vibrations, our frequency, because it's all about frequency and vibrations. Again, Tesla said, if you really want to comprehend the mysteries of the universe, think in terms of frequency, energy, vibration. That's really what's important. And I'll see less all the time, but I still do see some very, very fundamentalist mindset comments. And really, it's like, they're trapped in the system of the controllers, because the Abrahamic tradition is given to us by the controllers. It's given to us. It comes to Earth via Mars from Nibiru. It's their system. It's been cultivated and transplanted onto the Earth. It's a control-based slave mindset system with the caste. And we even see the caste system in India and in Hinduism. So every religion has been penetrated by this dark energy, this dark force. They've twisted every system that we have on the planet. And of course, they've been in control, so they're writing the history. And his story, we might as well call it that, because history is his story. Whose story? Well, some might say Marduk, some might say Enki, some might say Enlil, some might say Satan, some might say the devil. Well, you might say the draconian AI empire that's out there. Again, this battle rages even throughout the golden ages, but just in a different way. In a different way and in different areas, as we are passing through a particular portion of our galaxy, as the Earth revolves around Alcyon, our central sun. And as we go through the zodiac, we're basically entering different energetic areas, different energies, different influences. Right now, Mars is going retrograde. That means we're going to see more of the darker sides of Mars, which is conflict
Definitely a lot of conflict, a lot of anger, a lot of judgment, all things. We're going to get those parts of Mars that are not so savory, because each planet has its good side and its bad side. Well, what we might perceive as bad. So when I look at Mars and I see it giving off these energies, I definitely perceive it as bad, because that's something that could break out in a way that's not going to help us at all. So this is a time that's very important we pay attention to ourselves.
So it's important to realize that humanity as a whole has grown up in this age behind enemy lines. You could view it as the Earth is only free and clear truly in the Golden Age. Even in the Silver Age, the darkness starts to worm their way into the consciousness of the beings on the planet. When we think about all those people that are involved in many different aspects of conflict, and so many people just working behind the scenes, behind the lines, just to try to help people stay alive and to recover from all the damage that's done in war. And of course, we have Ukraine going on. We have many different conflicts going on this planet. As we've said, wars and rumors of wars being a sign of the end times. Well, the end times have been here for 6,000 years. There hasn't been a time when there's not wars and rumors of wars. And yet, when we see all the mass migrations of humanity, and you could see an authentic little smile over here, even though there's obviously misery for many of these people, that in many instances, these people are driven from their homes because their homes have been destroyed from bombs and the like going on, from warfare going on, from other forms of atrocities, which includes, again, so often religious persecution or political ideological persecution, which is done intentionally. Again, humanity has been divided so that it stays in conflict with itself in order to make it easier on the true controllers, which again are not human. And that's the big point to get across. There was a comment by somebody that must not have watched many of our videos that said something like aliens. I can't believe there's aliens, but you do know there's technology that's 70 years ahead of what we see. 70 years? Well, what does that do when we look back to the Vimanas, which are depicted 4,000 years ago, flying through the sky, having battles? That 70 years doesn't cover that. That's showing an extreme lack of understanding, which we need to bring you up to date, because this is an interdimensional, intergalactic battle. And we don't say this from left brain. We say it from firsthand experience, and that's part of what makes us different than some. But there are many that do have firsthand experience of this. Many. There's millions across the planet that do know firsthand that, yes, there's life elsewhere. There's also interference by beings of other densities and beings that are not here and come from somewhere else. When we recognize that all of humanity, every single one of us, is in some way a migrant. We've been booted from our home territory. We're all migrants. And that's something to, again, realize. So we should have compassion for those that have been booted from their apparent homeland in this life. And, follow a hard road trying to find a better life. Yet, of course, the dark side uses every opportunity to infiltrate. So while there's so many people that are just looking to find a better life for them and their loved ones, there are also other ones that are coming in to create more chaos. And this is part of what's going on the planet.
Mm-hmm. And, they do these things just to keep us in that low vibration. And there are many different things that we can do to raise our vibration. And one of them is having gratitude. No matter where you're at, no matter what is going on, there's always something that we can have gratitude for. There's always something or someone who really has it a lot worse off than we do. So that's why reaching out and helping people can be so extremely uplifting. It's uplifting. It raises our vibration. It raises our frequency. It helps to pull us up, up, up out of these places that we find ourselves in because of the controllers. We do have the ability to make decisions and make choices to keep our frequency up and out of the range of, these emotions, this anger, jealousy, all these really, really bad emotions. It's our choice. And finding that understanding can take a little bit of time.
As you see the stop deportations, open borders, and again, we look to the scripture and we have this fear of a one world order. Well, the one world order has been here for thousands of years, and they are afraid of us coming together. If there were no borders, then, there wouldn't necessarily be the warfare we see going on, because again, when we're divided into nations, when we're divided into ethnicities, we're divided, period. Yet at the same time, yes, the UN, all these alphabet soups that exist on this planet, they have one purpose, and that's to control humanity and to keep humanity divided, not coming together. No, it's an illusion, a complete illusion, and it's done purposely. And the highest echelons of leadership understand this. I think back to 45 when he first met with 44. And Cindy remembers quite clearly when he had his first meeting and he was quote unquote taking over with 44. He came out, he looked shaken. He looked pale. He looked like his knees were weak. He looked like he was going to vomit.
Oh my gosh, you could tell. You could just look at his energy and realize what he was exposed to. And at a very close range too. It can really, really make people sick. And I don't think he understood the magnitude of that he was going to be, working with.
No, I think, again, it's one thing when you get things as conjectures. Oh, well, this is what I think is going on. Oh, I've heard people say that there are extraterrestrials. I've heard people talk about EGG or Anunnaki or Draco or Greys. It's another thing when you all of a sudden are faced with something face to face and the realization that, wait a minute, so you mean we're not truly in control of this planet? That there's beings with technology tens, hundreds of thousands of years ahead of us? It's enough to make you lose your bowels.
Mm-hmm. It is. I mean, when you're faced with that reality, yes.
Absolutely. And when you discover you are way behind the front lines on this piece of real estate. So again, we always need to be exercising compassion. All you got to do is really go to the mythologies, which are not taken as mythologies, but are taken as realities from the indigenous people all across the globe. There's a reason why we have the so-called European Western society that's dominated the globe. It's been used to eradicate all the indigenous people and their belief systems and their hidden knowledge of how the universe really works. When we see these interesting masks and stuff, this is the Dogon tribe. How did the Dogon tribe know about Sirius B? You can't see it. This is, again, one of those quote-unquote mysteries. The Dogon tribe is a group of 100,000 individuals who live in Burkina Faso and in Bali in West Africa. And they live in this one area around these cliffs. And they speak openly of the Nomos and also Sirius. And also they knew the Sirius star system, and they knew about Sirius B. Sirius B is a star that's invisible to the naked eye. According to anthropologists who visit the Dogon, in the 1930s, the tribe was aware of the existence of this star, which they call Po Tolo. Furthermore, they knew every detail of the white dwarf near Sirius B. They knew the length of its orbit in years, the shape of its orbit, and the fact that the white dwarf is quite dense. The Dogon also say there's another star in the system that they call Emma Ya. Thus far, Emma Ya has not been found by astronomers. Maybe it doesn't exist, but how do they know? Well, again, they talk about the Nomo, which are beings that are very, they're like mer people, so to speak. And they come from the sea. And they also taught a lot of the secrets and mysteries to various tribes all around the world. We see the Nomo referred to. We see the fishman Dagon. We see Yoans as well. These are other beings that in other societies are speaking about the same type of being. And actually it's referred to in the Vedas too, as there's an incarnation of Vishnu that is a fish man. In reality, the first intelligent humanoid beings on this planet were actually what we would call mer people.
Mm-hmm. And they were. When I looked, there are these very beautiful blue beings that can really mesh with the earth and are so extremely intelligent with the understanding of the layout of everything and how to use medicines, just really being so interwoven into the earth herself. There was almost no way you could tell a difference between the beings that I could see originated here and the earth herself. But that's how things should be. Consciousness with the planet should be a constant conversation, understood by everyone. And it's a beautiful thing when we start to realize that oneness of everything.
It is. And most life gets along in a benevolent manner. Again, in this age, and being the fact that we're under the influence of a very, very warlike society, it might not seem that way. But most life does get along in an extremely benevolent, interactive manner out there. And most of the communication is done telepathically.
That's really, really cool. That's so interesting when you see that telepathic back and forth going on, from one, even trees, from one tree to the next. If there's something that's poisonous on one tree, it will let the other tree know via roots. It's so interesting to watch that.
Yeah, it is. It's fascinating, actually, as you see here, a little representation and a picture of Sirius and Sirius B. And so, the mysteries of the Dogon, and it's all been documented. And they even know the cycles. They understand the movement and the cycles. How is this possible? Well, this is not the only instance. There are many other instances of other tribes. Now, we go from Africa, we go to the American Southwest and the Hopi. Path of the Star Warriors. Star Warriors is name given to the blue entities by the Hopi Indians. The Hopi have always maintained that alien life forms exist and walk among us. Many types of these life forms, some good, some bad, some in between. The Hopi say that blue Star Warriors have been guided in protecting human beings since time immemorial, and have passed on knowledge and secrets of the universe to us, and in particularly directly to the Hopi, so as to raise the vibrations of the planet and its inhabitants, and to aid every person into ascendancy. As a result of the great Holocaust and genocide of Native Americans by the white people, the Europeans, the old ways were lost. In order to recover that ancient knowledge and heal the planet and the human beings, it was the intent of the Indian elders involved to raise an isolated group of young warriors in the old ways. And then we, of course, have the prophecy of the Rainbow Warriors. So when you look at it, when the conquistadors came over, they conquered, they took the gold, they exterminated people in droves, disease exterminated many, many more, and they supplanted the indigenous belief systems and traditions and knowledge with Christianity. And again, Christianity has been used as a tool of the controllers. The modern form of Christianity that we have has nothing to do with the historical Yeshua. It's an amalgam of these different belief systems that have been used to divide and conquer. So again, there are those that will choose to, because they find it comforting, to follow that fundamentalist Anunnaki and Nibiruan path. And that's really what it is. The whole belief set that we are born into original sins and we need a blood sacrifice to redeem us is completely controllers. Completely. There is no basis in reality to that when we're outside of the controller's belief system. And all these indigenous people always talk about the fact that if you want to go find source or God with the big G, you just got to go within. You have to look within. Find your own unique path, because we are all unique individuals, not one size fits all. No, that's the controllers. It's so obvious when we see the way they work. Conform. Just like we see all those people when we look at yesterday's video, with hundreds of people lining up to get their daily tests so they can go and get their daily bread. Yeah, they must conform to whatever it is the controllers give them. And they always rule through fear. So, hey, you better be saved. Otherwise, it's hellfire and damnation. It's torment for all eternity. This is the will of the Creator, is what's given. But it's not. The Creator creates so that we could all have unique experiences, and we all are unique aspects of that individuated source in the first place. So one size fitting all is not the original plan. That's the slave master's mentality. And it's important for us to recognize that. Every time we always are trying to fit something into that Abrahamic tradition, because that's what we're being brought up with, you're giving power to the very ones that are suppressing you in the first place.
Mm-hmm. And people do it because it's the safe thing to do. It's very, very natural to want to stand next to someone else who has a belief system, and so that you blend in with them, because we are very much like herd animals. We want to stay together, and together there's safety. And one of the things that we do naturally is, oh, okay, well, this person understands this book and their belief system, so I'm just going to be safe and I'm going to stand next to them. Well, as we start to realize that we are all one, regardless of how you look at it, no matter which way you decide to turn your head or point the perspective, we are all one. Then we start to realize, hey, well, this is what I see. This is what I understand. And you can stand strong with that without being feared to be kicked out of the herd, because we no longer have that mentality that, okay, if you don't fit in, you just get out. And they give us that mentality from such a young age that they say, okay, everyone here has to agree with this one rule, and if you don't, you get some kind of mark on your name, and therefore it's some form of punishment. So having to break down all of those walls takes time.
It does. But then sometimes there can be just this big aha moment.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, for me, it never hit me as being right. And I was brought up in a Catholic household, but, you know, I started going on my own to a Baptist church when I was about 10. That was me wanting to go, just trying to explore. And I read the Bible cover to cover at 11 for the first time, and have reread it cover to cover many times, have compared individual passages back when I needed to have multiple copies of Bibles and couldn't just pull it up on the internet. And so, you know, the realization of this being absolutely an extraterrestrial, interdimensional battle was obvious to me, but it was also a remembering more than anything else, because, you know, both Cindy and I, you know, we're here basically, it's not our first go round. This is our entire purpose, is to incarnate at this time. Many people are incarnating here that don't really come from here. That's the other thing you have to try to understand, is that there's many that are incarnating on the planet just simply to help those people that don't know any better. And they've had lives on other planets in other star systems. So when we see the headdress here, and this is the Hopi again, this is giving acknowledgement to the ant people that saved them from the last cataclysm and told them when to go into the earth and led them down into caves, and then told them when it was safe to come back up to the surface. Kind of looks a little bit like Princess Leia's haircut, doesn't it? Yeah. Well, again, this is done to basically imitate the ant people and their antennas. And we see all sorts of depictions of all different types of humanoid and some non-humanoid beings that in many cases are eerily similar to what we might see in a sci-fi movie. And then we've talked about the outright open, right in the open, wars of the Asuras and the Devas. And the Asuras are those beings that are kind of demonic, and the Devas are the ones that are benevolent and try to help humanity. Very, very different. The Devas are the Devic types of beings, or extraterrestrials, are here with us in the Golden Age, and they give us really our deeper spirituality. They have taught us the mysteries of the universe, and so those Golden Age teachings, some of them are still with us now, and of course they get characterized in a dark light because they are teachings that really do illuminate and give us some true reality that's out there on a deeper level, whereas the controllers, theirs is all about you better or you're going to get punished. And again, it's all about subservience to a different set of beings, where it's not the teachings that we get from the devas in the golden ages, and we could still connect with them now through meditation. And they talk about the wars, and we've touched on this many times. There was one war in which, in one single battle, 1.3 billion people were killed on Earth, and we see evidence of just massive scarring on the planet, and what appears to be radioactive glass-like substances that could only be developed by high heat. I do think there is a push out there for those that start to understand some of the cyclical scientific knowledge that we are learning now. The controllers basically have all sorts of people at different levels to take people that are waking up to one thing and lead them down another dead-end road. This is what they do time and time again. Yes, the sun cycles. Yes, there are solar blasts. Yes, we can learn a lot from understanding Birkeland currents and, again, grand solar minimums and when the magnetosphere is in decline. But the reality is, all those things are real, but the reality is that the biggest destruction on the planet has come from the wars that are ongoing between different, very intelligent beings.
Mm-hmm. And when we look at things like that picture that Mike was looking at right before, and we read certain passages in the Bible, we soon recognize that, hey, that's definitely some kind of technology, and not a very nice technology either. And you can see some beings being described, like he came down from the sky and he had glowing red eyes and his feet were that of bronze. And well, this is some kind of a robot, when you are able to look in the Bible and turn that perspective just enough to see, well, this is technology and we are nowhere near the the highest point in modern technology as we are. We're actually really far behind. So they have this in these books that they tell us to study, but they don't give us the entire context of it at all, and that's to keep us in control.
No, because again, if the Earth was under the control of an extraterrestrial interdimensional group of beings, they would want you to think that Earth is the only place that there's life. There's no other life anywhere out there. They would want you to think Earth is the center of the universe. Everything else, they would want you to think exactly what we're taught from a fundamentalist aspect, because they want to hide themselves. And then they would also teach you that the evil is the good and the good is the evil. And of course, if Satan, the adversary, controls the world, then everything that's given in the mainstream has to be the satanic teachings. As you see, 432,000 man-like humanoid races in the Vedic universe. And we've talked about the Vimanas. I mean, there's so many references to them, and you can see, drawings. And it's interesting, too, because the Vimanas are described as being of different types depending on where we are in the yugas. When we see them and we're in fifth density, they're much more energy ships. They're made out of pure life force, plasma.
Mm-hmm. And I thought that was the most interesting thing to read, how they have all these formulas depending on where we're at in the spiral of life. So all of this has been mapped out. There really truly is nothing new. It's already been.
And here is Lyra. And so when we're talking about humanity being a migrant species, again, these battles are huge. And what we got just last night, we were getting more detail on the Lyran star system and the planets in the Lyran system. And there's not a lot of habitable planets. More have been destroyed because of these battles than are currently inhabited. So humanity has gone out from Lyra. And again, this is just what we know about in our particular area. There, of course, is going to be much more unexplored territory in many ways than explored that we know about. But what we do know is that so much of humanity, like when we think about the Nordic extraterrestrials that we call the Pleiadians, originally this is where they came from. Pleiades, it has become a newer habitat for refugees of this war. These Lyran wars, absolutely galactic, and this one, we didn't do this, somebody else did it. Lyrans versus Marduk, and again, yeah, it is, and it's not the Anunnaki, who control things. No, the Anunnaki are basically now just a slave race to the Draco and ultimately to the AI component. So if you're looking at some sort of hierarchy, you have the human controllers on the planet, and of those human controllers, we were getting that there's only like one out of a very small amount that's completely what we would call a true reptilian, and able to literally change into a reptilian being, or what you would recognize as a reptilian being. Most of them are just simply puppets and controlled, and the reality is they're clones. I know a lot of people might not be able to handle the clone idea and might still have to rationalize that these are just face masks and stuff. And in some cases, sure, there could be face masks being used as well. But yeah, cloning is a big thing out there, and it has been. So you have, the human controllers through the families that we know about. We know about many of those. Two of them begin with an R, right? And then you go from there to more of this dark secret circle of beings that we would call the Gigi. And originally there were a bunch. Now they came from Mars. They were working Mars for the Anunnaki, and they came from Mars to Earth and brought that Martian system to Earth, including the Abrahamic tradition when you get down to it. But ultimately that is also coming from Nibiru. Now some of these people became refugees, and as we said, left Lyra and resettled in Pleiades, others in other places, and including Earth. But when we look at what happened to some, unfortunately, some were conquered and assimilated. And that's what we have with what we would call the Nibiruans or the Anunnaki. They were conquered and assimilated into the dark side, and they are now basically slaves for the Draco. So, again, you have the human controllers here being controlled by the Gigi. The Gigi's still basically underneath the Anunnaki. The Anunnaki underneath the Draco, and of course the Greys and some other hybrids and some other what we would call androids, robots, are working all with them. There are some other races that work with them. There are some races that work on that side, and some races that'll have some other of their same race working on the light side too. So that's important to recognize. So, again, the Anunnaki, the Nibiruans, have been basically assimilated into the dark side. And just like on humanity, on Earth here, some are choosing to go that route. Some are choosing to take all the artificial intelligence and all the small nanu, and they're going to become part of that collective, and others are going to resist and maintain their sovereignty.
Mm-hmm. And here is where we have the splitting of energies, that phase in our life where we need to decide, am I going to stay organic, all organic, or am I going to go and take some of these technologies to make my life different, or even possibly make it a lot easier? Well, we have time to go down this path of the organic, but it helps if we see how very, very important it is, and it does help if we can see the bigger picture, how it's painted. Once we have full understanding and we can integrate that in with our decision making, we can integrate that into our life and how We want things to turn out in our life for ourselves and for our children and our grandchildren. But the splitting of the energy has already happened. I know many of you might find yourselves not hanging out with old friends as much as you used to. Definitely changing, exploring meditation, exploring mantras. Your frequency is changing. And as your frequency changes, you're starting to blend with that new frequency, which means that certain energies have to fall away. And it's not a bad thing. You're just changing.
So this is, again, a much, much bigger battle than we realize. And it's only because we've fallen into the darkest level of it that we don't see the battle happening over our heads right now. But there will be a time, as Cindy's always quoting the Nostradamus one about the gods will make it to appear to be a great war. Mm-hmm. And of course they've thought of everything. They know this is because this is not the first time. I mean, this program is what they do and put in place on many different worlds. And again, I'll have all the links for you guys. UFOs in the Hindu Vedas, they're all over. I mean, it's just so obvious. It's so obvious that we are talking about an intergalactic, interdimensional battle. A very beautiful Vimana coming down from the sky as if a brilliant moon were coming down, illuminating the 10 directions. And when passing through the space, he gradually saw all the planets of the solar system. And on the path, he saw the demigods and their Vimanas showering flowers upon him like rain. I mean, hello. I mean, it's just so obvious what this is. It is so obvious. It's just the dark ones want you to think that there's only life here on Earth. There is only one way to do things. There's one dogma. Dogma's created to divide us. It does a good job. Here you see ancient documentations of UFOs and evidence of alien races living on Earth during ancient times. And it's not just the Vedas, as we say. It comes from every corner of the globe. A really good book to start out with is Mysteries of the Sacred Universe. This gets into the cosmology of the Bhagavata Purana. This is by Richard Thompson, Dr. Richard Thompson. He also did this one, which you could probably read in one sitting. Alien Identities. I mean, it's like 350, 400 pages, but it's that engrossing. If you are first being exposed to how modern ufology and ancient myths and legends, they're one. There's a oneness there, and here we are, conditioned to think that they're different and separate. They're not. 2.8 billion year old spheres found in South Africa. Do you think Homo sapiens made those? No, but they were obviously not just random geological formation. These are metallic spheres, and we find them of different age in different places. There's metallic spheres that were found that are about 1,800, 2,000 years old in Mexico, in a temple, and in Siberia too. We find things like this that don't make any sense. Well, they do. There's been advanced cultures here the whole time. We've just been in a dark age where everything is hidden and covered up.
Mm-hmm. And, when we look at these spheres, they're used in mining, they're used currently in mining, how to break everything down. So, and they're all over the planet, and there's many different uses of them, but they don't tell us things like that. They just, they just say things like, oh, wow, well, look what we found. Well, isn't this interesting? I wonder what it's for. They know exactly what it's for.
Yeah. And there's no coincidences as well. Because, how would Cindy know anything about mining?
Well, I just do.
Well, she does because her father was a miner. And this was his profession. And isn't it funny that she's born into the family of a miner? Not only that, but somebody that has these gifts and somebody that is, of the indigenous tradition, just as, we have that same lineage on my side. as well. We both share very, very common ancestry in some ways. And, my dad, again, was brought up very Catholic, yet in confidence, and he never shared this with anybody but me. He believed in Mary, and he believed in Yeshua, but he also told me that there are aliens. UFOs are real. I know. And how did he know? Because, again, they follow these lineages. And, Cindy and I, we have encountered more than half a dozen different extraterrestrial, interdimensional beings. I'm not sure exactly how many different species. We'll have to write down and list it at some point in time and think about it, including beings that we would call mer people. And so, again, it's up to you guys to discern for yourself. But, for us, it's not left brain. We're just sharing what we know.
They have these these big pieces of equipment out at these mining operations. And one of my dad's job was to troubleshoot these very large pieces of equipment and know what exactly is wrong, because if something goes wrong with a multi-million-dollar thing, it really takes a lot of time to figure that out. And one of his jobs was to walk up to the equipment and actually read and know exactly what's wrong with it. So they might spend a few $1,000s fixing it, whereas if he wasn't there, they might go really, really, really deep into debt trying to fix this equipment. So he was very, very good at that.
Yeah, and we've seen firsthand, too, evidence of mining in areas that have not been mined in the American Southwest. And, it's obvious that these areas were mined, but they haven't been mined in modern times. They were mined in the distant past, as well as evidence of all sorts of highly advanced civilizations. So it's our mission to share with you guys. So again, it's not from conjecture, and it's not from, read this guy's writings and that. No, this is direct experience, and with Cindy being the type of channel that she is, we're in connection with beings that are not of this density and not of this earth every single day, multiple times, every single day.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just something that's just common. We just live with it.
Yeah, it is what it is. It's our life, and it's the way things are with us. But that's why we cultivate the spiritual first and foremost, and we give it the very highest priority.
Indeed.
So may you guys be blessed by the creator of this universe, because there is a benevolent creator of this universe, and that creator has no intention of punishing anybody. And that's a beautiful thing to realize. Much love. God bless, and namaste.
Namaste.